and then we're going to close up shop. Dr. Goodwin, the lead scientist report is item number 10.
Right, well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, on behalf of the science community, we'd just like to welcome Judge Demerol.
Peter, before we get going, it might be advantageous for us to switch with the ISB since
Tracy,
Dr. Collier has a plane to catch.
Okay, you got to catch a plane. Dr. Collier, let's go to item number 11, the Independent Science Board. And Judge Demerol, I don't know if you've met the to-be,
I have not.
The future king of the Independent Science Board, as it were, Tracy Collier. He practices science in the state of Washington and has a impressive resume and activity and knowledge base.
Glad to meet you. Okay, so what I'm doing is reporting out to you folks on our teleconference of a couple of days ago, which covered basically 3 items, which we were going to finalize on that teleconference. And only one of those 3 is now finalized, but at least we got one done. So the first item is our long-running review of science programs that support habitat restoration in the face of climate change and whether adaptive management is reasonably accommodated in that research and in those actions. That report is, we got our last input from USGS at our February meeting. We incorporated that information, and on our teleconference, it was decided that we will finalize that in our April meeting, but there were some constructive edits that the ISB wanted to make, so we're going to make those edits, put them in that report.
And the final unrevised version was attached in our packet.
Yes, yep. Yeah, with the 9 findings and then our recommendations resulting from those 9 findings. So you can look at that. It's not going to change substantively in the content, but there were some things we thought could be better said. We also were discussing and finalizing the comment letter on the SED, which you've heard some discussion about here today. That we did finalize last night and turned it in by the noon deadline today, so that's now submitted by the ISB appropriately. And that, again, is on the percentages of unimpaired flows. I want to point out that our next major next major review topic is going to be the subject of food webs and flows. So we will be dealing with this issue of flows and how they affect the ecosystem and many other facets of the ecosystem.
Mr. Fiorini.
And we talked about this last night a little bit. So
yes,
go
we
ahead.
did. Yes. We've had a conversation. Can you describe for us the level of scrutiny that the Independent Science Board provided and what led to the comments on the SCD?
So basically, we received information at our February meeting, and we responded basically extemporaneously at that meeting, and we were putting those verbal comments into writing in a memo form to make it clear what we had said. So I would not characterize this as having been a thorough, exhaustive response to that issue, but it was more wanted to get on record what we had said during the meeting. That's my opinion. Other members of the board may not necessarily agree. So.
Well, you're here, they're not.
Exactly. So I get one vote.
Was there any acknowledgement to the more than a decade-long study and research that was done through the Vernalis Adaptive Management Program?
Yeah. I don't recall that discussion occurring at the time, but I may have missed it. So I can't say with any total conviction. So, but again, I would just encourage people that we are going to be looking at the issue of flow and all the information that's out there. Well, hopefully all of it, or at least a good deal of it, in the future, and it'll be an ongoing process with great opportunity for input and depth of discussions.
Okay.
The third was to discuss and finalize our comment letter on the review of BDC Chapter 7, which, again, Chair Eisenberg had come to us in January and asked us to review that, even though the full draft of the BDCP was not available. We did that. We have had that's generated a fair amount of public comment, which is in the record on the website. You can see all that, and we were ready to finalize our comments on Chapter 7 at our teleconference 2 days ago, when we learned that in fact Chapter 3, with especially the important section 3.6, has now been released, which many of the comments and encourage us to look at that relationship between information in Chapter 3 and Chapter 7 before we made a judgment on Chapter 7 alone. So we have committed to looking at Chapter 7 also has been re-released. I haven't looked at it yet. The new version, my understanding is it's not markedly changed, but we are going to look at the re-release of Chapter 7, Chapter 3, especially 3.6, and then also to prepare ourselves for the BDCUP tasks that await us. Everybody has been asked to look at Chapter 1 because it does give a good overview of what's contained. So we should finalize that at our meeting on April 21st, 22nd, along with our habitat science review, and we will then be teeing up our next review subject of the regarding the flow and food webs. Any questions?
Any questions? Nope. Doctor, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it a great deal.